Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, joined once more by Charlie and Neel for another episode in the Steven Spielberg Retrospective. And this week, we have reached Saving Private Ryan, released in 1998. And just another one of those films we're going to be calling one of the best films of all time. We've said it a lot over the last sort of 18, 19 weeks. And we're going to be continuing a lot of plays as a heads up into that. But before we even start talking about the film, how are we both doing tonight?
Pretty good. Not bad.
Not bad. Not bad.
Excellent. This is going to be quite the discussion. This isn't obviously live. This is pre-recorded. The entire series but we've been quite late at this, so it's probably a blessing we're not live. If anyone's curious about behind the scenes, it's currently San Diego Comic-Con at the time of recording. And there's also been some Spielberg news today as I continue my upset anger at the Fabelmans not getting its proper UK release date. It's now getting TIFF released. So if we're very lucky, we might get it at London Film Festival. So join us another month when it's delayed and on the news. But before we get into any of that, I don't really have to put you on the spot this week. You've both been on this series before. Charlie joined us for Amistad. Neel joined us for E.T. and The Lost World. It's kind of like a mini Avengers now, like all the recent 90s films, we're bringing you all back in. And Tate is away for anyone curious at home. He has missed another excellent window of a couple of films that's going to be coming up. But I was going to put you on the spot of another question, but it's really hard because I realized we're talking about Saving Private Ryan here. So what I'm actually going to jump in with, even before the comments, is just asking you both, can you remember the first time you saw this film or your memories with it?
I watched it when I was probably too young to watch it, really, because my parents really loved this film. And I just remember being a little bit like, there's a lot of violence, a lot of guns, a lot of blood, and kind of never really taking in like the actual story and just seeing it as like this bloodbath, basically. But I've seen it dozens of times since then, so I appreciate it a bit more now.
I can't remember exactly. It may have been at uni, but I'm not sure. I have absolutely no idea. I remember really enjoying it. I think I've only watched this film sort of 2 or 3 times in my life, to be honest. And one of those times was yesterday. And it was very, very good.
No, it's excellent with this, and it is a classic's an understatement. Probably one of the most important war films if you look at the genre as well. We don't have Tom Woods with us tonight, who would go on to say that it's not the best war film in 1998. He says that an awful lot because he loves The Thin Red Line, which is a great Hans Zimmer soundtrack, but it is not Saving Private Ryan, although I appreciate the argument. But what we're going to do, we're going to ask everybody at home to comment below your thoughts of Saving Private Ryan. If again, you can remember your memories of this, I'll go over mine in a couple of moments. If you're a fan of Steven Spielberg, please do hit that subscribe button. There's a lot more Spielberg videos coming on the way. I want to hear your thoughts on this release as well, because this is, I think, one of the all-time classics, and it's really interesting hearing different people's stories with these. So please do that. And if you are new to the channel, you know what we do. Of course, we are a film channel. We look at reviews, both for new and old films, TV shows, so many other things. And the best place to find us is on our social medias, where we do announce our videos and what is happening. So that's Twitter and Instagram at cinema_savvy, Facebook and letterboxd.com/cinemasavvy. And we have a link to Redbubble in the description below, where you can pick up some of our merch. We don't actually have any Spielberg stuff on there. I've got some really cool ideas that maybe we'll do a little bit later on in the year. But before we delve further into that, I'm going to talk my memories of this one, because this is one of my favorite films of all time, to the point where I almost bought a quad poster before the series began to put behind me. And I kind of realized it wouldn't fit in my room, so I couldn't. And I've also still got an Endgame and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood quad poster rolled up under my bed in storage, which I don't know why I still have them all. So it'd just be another one to the pile. But this film, I'm the same as I can't remember the first time I saw this film. I think I'm more like you, Charlie, that I've seen this so many times across my life that I really don't know. It's one of those films that would be on. It's not an ITV2 film. This is like a film for 9 p.m. film, but you used to get really good films on at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have seen this with my parents, I think, when I was quite little. I was allowed to watch older films like this. And when I was at school, I was like quite a buff on history, like modern history, like 20th century. I studied that and I absolutely loved it. And my absolute horror was that we weren't allowed to watch it at school because it was rated 18. But obviously it didn't matter because I had it on DVD. However, my legendary teacher did off the radar show us the 20 minutes for anyone that hadn't seen it at the beginning. You all know what 20 minutes that is, which should be compulsory viewing. I don't care if you're not 18, you should see it. But yeah, so I said I'm going to wax lyrical. I've loved this film a lot. I've upgraded from DVD to Blu-ray, from Blu-ray to 4K. It's one of the films that I've always had because to me it's just genuinely one of the best films ever made, and we're going to get into some of that across this video. And again, I want to, if you're like a Tom Woods, comment if you think Thin Red Line's better. I don't know if either of you have seen Thin Red Line, actually. That's a good question. Has anyone?
Yeah, a while ago, yeah.
Do you like it? It's a very interesting
it's
film.
a good film. Yeah.
It's 1990. It's fascinating because that's probably another video, but Thin Red Line's more on the emotion and the drama and the sort of the character, what war can do to an individual and to people, whereas this is more of a presentation of the war. And it's sort of this, we'll get to that, but this film was the jumping off point where the media moved in towards this direction of presenting war in film, games, everything. And that. So it's really interesting when we get people speaking about Thin Red Line. And again, the Hans Zimmer theme is one of the best pieces of music he's ever done. But sorry to cut segues. Let's talk this film. And we'll always begin with the IMDb plot synopsis. And I don't read these in advance. Sometimes we get a paragraph, sometimes we get a line. And this week's looking lovely because I can only see a line and a half on my schedule. And it's as simple as it needs to be. Following the Normandy landings, a group of US soldiers go behind enemy lines to retrieve a paratrooper whose brothers have been killed in action, aka Saving Private Ryan. I know Charlie's very excited because we get to talk a little bit about Matt Damon throughout today. But yeah, I kind of want to put you all on the spot of another question, but I actually can't. So what we'll do, we'll talk about some of the behind the scenes of this. So I don't know if either of you are familiar, but it's a fiction. The events are fictional, taking place in obviously a real life event. However, the basis for the story completely blew my mind when I was younger. I found out that it was based off a real life family. So I don't know if either of you knew that. There was the family called the Nylans. So there were 4 brothers. And similar to this, it was believed that 3 of them were killed and that they went on an operation to bring the 4th one home. And in the decades that followed, it came out that the 3rd brother was actually taken as a prisoner of war.
Wow.
So he did return those years later. So it's a very interesting concept for this because I think when you're doing real life war stories, you can't really afford to get anything wrong. Whereas if you put a fictional spin on it like this, with fictional characters, I actually think it benefits in the film's favor. I know that there's going to be a lot of disagreement with that, but do you both see where I'm coming from in that respect?
Yeah, I think, like you say, if you're actually using real life people that existed, you have to be really strict with what story you're telling. But they had creative freedom with this, and they were able to create more sort of contrasting characters. Characters that have a bit more of like recognizable personality, rather than real people who maybe are all very similar and hard to differentiate between. I think with this, I can't remember all their names, but I can remember things about the characters, and that kind of splits them apart from each other. And I think while not using real names and obviously there is a lot of fact in it, but it is generally quite fictional. They have the space to do that.
Yeah, you have to be quite. I mean, there are some stories you can kind of tell which are true, where you can kind of have more creative license. I don't think you can with war stories. There's far too much history involved. There's, there's certain amount of propaganda as well, and there's also the sort of the love of the country that especially an American war film would have. You have to be respectful of that. So it's good that it's more fictional but sort of based on real life. Yeah, I agree with what Charlie said. I was thinking about that before. There's a lot of nuance with these characters. There's a lot of different characters. A lot of like some sympathise with others, some don't. Some just want to get home, and some just want to kill people, frankly. But it's good to see, and I kind of wonder how I would be in that situation. I'd probably be crying in the corner, but
No, it raises a really good question. We'll get to speak about the sort of the squad and overall later, but I do think one of the reasons this film works is because I think everybody can see themselves. Doesn't matter which characters. I won't ask which character it is, but I think there's a bit of everyone, and maybe in every character, or maybe you're more like one than the other. And it's really interesting that this film digs into that. And again, with it being fictional, you can do so. And so the writer Robert Rodat, who wrote this film, it's his first one with Spielberg. The background to him was that his wife bought him a book on D-Day in the early 90s. And when he read that book, that sort of spurred him on to write this film. And he would then speak to Paramount, get it pitched. Paramount obviously took it on board, and this is the crazy thing. This is something that's blown my mind today. It wasn't offered to Spielberg first. It was offered to Michael Bay. I listen. I love Michael Bay, and I've not seen Pearl Harbor, and I'm never going to watch Pearl Harbor on principle because I've just heard about how sort of offensive that is to everybody
Humans
involved.
living.
It's
Yeah,
cool.
and I'm just sort of there like. I'm trying to imagine Michael Bay's D-Day landing. I kind of don't want to imagine it, but we would have a very, very different film.
I mean, there's actually a part of me that would quite like to see it.
Yeah. I mean, at the time of this being recorded, the Oppenheimer poster came out yesterday. And I don't know if you've all seen the Michael Bay memes that have followed it. They've been like replacing Nolan saying Michael Bay. It's just obviously a ball of fire. And that completely blew my mind because in the background of this, I thought like Schindler's this would have been a film that Spielberg sat on for a few years that has been waiting for the right moment. And actually, I mean, I'm not fussed he was second. I mean, you can understand why in 1997 time was 96. They went to Michael Bay just on The Rock. It's the big up and coming action director. And you understand that. Yeah. But at the same time, obviously, we've got the benefit of being here sort of almost 25 years later, knowing the impact this film had and how great this film is and how highly regarded it is. And I can't really comprehend that. So the background to Spielberg was that it was then offered to him. And he just set up DreamWorks Pictures. So they sort of co-financed it with Paramount. And that's where he came on board. Now, Charlie, you joined me on Amistad. Mm-hmm. And we got to talk a little bit about DreamWorks being a new studio at the time. And one of the amazing things is that we kind of spoke a little bit about the post-production that it felt like a TV movie and some of that angle. And we kind of found out that he did as little as he could in post because he was filming Saving Private Ryan, which is just, again, a testament to how he makes these films, that he's always got like 2 or 3 films on the go. I don't know how. And he even like today, he was doing West Side Story at the same time as the Fabelmans, like post-production and waiting for it. It's really like interesting following him as director. But how do you all, I mean, this is more so for Charlie, what's the jump like for you from Amistad to this, like a year apart?
Well, like I said in the Amistad video, I think if Saving Private Ryan wasn't in the works and hadn't followed it so closely, I think Amistad would be the film people still talk about. Because I do think it has the grounds to be that great big historical epic. But then Saving Private Ryan came along and everyone was like, what's Amistad? Never even heard of it. So many people haven't seen it. And it's because this film, and also Schindler's List was not far before it, there was no room for it. These 2 juggernaut, like historical epic dramas with absolutely amazing cast. And, I think Saving Private Ryan really did completely steal the scene from Amistad. Probably for good reason. But I don't know.
And Neil, have you seen Amistad without putting you on the spot?
No.
It's fine to know.
I haven't seen it. I was literally looking it up on IMDb on my phone.
It's fine. Because you were with us on The Lost World. So when we spoke about The Lost World of Elliot, Lost World came out in, I think, May 97.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
And then Amistad was the end of 97, and this is 98. Like, again, that's 3 films in a year and a half. That's extraordinary. Like, I don't. Well, it's actually 3 films in like 13 months, if I'm being really honest.
But that's why Amistad fell under the radar, because it had great big things around it to battle against. And Spielberg was obviously committed to filming Saving Private Ryan, which is why he handed over post-production of Amistad, and which is the one that everybody still talks about. The question answers itself.
Yeah, and kind of with this, where I'm going to go. I do want to delve into the history, but I don't want to turn into a history lesson because I could really go in, and I don't want to put you on that. But I want to talk actually a little about the shoot, if you don't mind me. So I think a big thing of this is it shot in June 97. It went on for 2 months, and obviously the big scene that I think we're going to speak a lot about tonight is the landing at Omaha Beach, the 20-minute set piece. Now, this film has an extraordinary amount of set pieces. It is almost 3 hours long, but it is always this 20 minutes that 90% of people speak about this film. And I genuinely think there's nothing wrong with that, because to me, it's the best 20 minutes ever made of cinema. And I say this, like, I think I've said this a lot at Fabelmans recently, but I can't say I'm astounded by how he's able to do this, whether it's releasing 3 films in 13 months, whether it's, doing a film like Schindler's List whilst doing Jurassic Park, which you couldn't have anything more different. To get that opening 20 minutes, and for anyone curious, like it obviously they weren't ever going to film on location. That was filmed in Ireland, and they had about 1,500 extras, which included the Irish Reserve Army, amputees, which has to be brought up because that's a big part of what happened after the film. And I believe the official modern day term would be LARPing, but obviously back then it was local reenactment groups who obviously, you get, I think it's more of a thing in Britain and Europe than maybe America, where they act out like, well, I guess for us it's more like modern war than over there. And obviously their dreams came true. However, they were made to play the Germans, which is kind of a bit random, but it's a cool fact. It's a cool bit of trivia. It's also probably a bit like, well, you guys are the ones that are doing it in spare time, so you're going to be the other ones. That's probably how I imagine the cast felt. But just how they made it. I mean, there are accounts, and I'm sure if you both heard the stories of, at the time, there were veterans that had to leave cinemas because it was so accurate.
Yeah.
It was giving them PTSD, which is a testament to the quality of the film, a testament to the direction, and at the same time, obviously, I'm just going to say it's educating us on the horrors of war, because, I think I've been very blessed, and I'm only a couple of years younger than you both, but I've grown up in the gaming era where Call of Duty was the big thing every November. All the war games were at this prime in the sort of late noughties. And a lot of that is, to me, generally down to Private Ryan and 98. That sort of spurred on like Call of Duty. The earlier ones were all World War II games. I think the Omaha Beach stuff has almost created a subgenre of war film. It's pushed it into the not the general public, but just everyone's, I think, opinion on war not changed, but it was just presented differently by studios via financing. Again, games, films, series. We'll get to speak about a few shows later on, actually, which is very important to these. And I just kind of want to ask you both, how do you feel watching the opening 20 minutes? Because it's just extraordinary.
I think, like you say, it's the part of the film everybody remembers, which is interesting because the lead character is not even anywhere near being, not the lead character, sorry, the title character. It's not anywhere near being even part of the story at this point. We don't, like, Tom Hanks' character is not even on his mission to go and find Ryan at this point. This is literally the most incredible use of exposition and, threat building and immersion that the audience needs to know exactly what is at stake here. And I mean, films about D-Day have been being made since the 50s. This isn't the first time this has been seen on screen, but it's definitely the first time it was seen on screen like this, in this real sort of sense of reality. Is it even filmed in real time? I don't think there's much cutting throughout.
They didn't storyboard the opening 20. It was almost like they had oh god, I can never pronounce his surname properly. It's Janusz Kaminski. They kind of just had him. It feels like a documentary, in a really polite, and he did the same thing in Schindler's List, where they didn't storyboard Schindler's List. They wanted to present it as artifacts of the time, which is why that's black and white. And with this one, I don't know if you notice how grainy the picture is throughout.
Yeah, and
they actually they adapted some of the modern lenses to get a grainy effect on the entire film, so that it doesn't look pristine. And even me watching on 4K, the beauty of 4K transfers is that some films look too clean and it actually sort of disrupts them. But this still looked gritty, darker, and it's all handheld. They're running with them on set, and I just want to chuck in an incredible thing which I'd read about years ago, is that they adapted the camera, so they put drills on the side of the lens. So when there's explosions, they'd press a button and the camera would shake more because the drills are coming into effect. Yeah. But it's little things like that just sort of bump up the opening scene. Sorry, I've diverted away.
No, it's fine. It kind of makes it almost experimental filmmaking. In the same way as 1917 is kind of experimental filmmaking, but they're telling a story that's been seen on screen so many times before. But whenever I'm watching Saving Private Ryan, I always think back to, I don't know if either of you have seen The Longest Day. It's another film about the D-Day landings, but that is told it's set just on that one single day. It's quite an old film. I think it's black and white. It's got, oh my God, the cast. It's got like Sean Connery. It's just got the most incredible cast. Anyway, I watched it a few years ago. I'm watching Saving Private Ryan again this time. I kept sort of comparing it, and The Longest Day is incredibly Hollywood. It's very like stars of the silver screen in this great big World War II epic telling the story of D-Day. And then in a way, Saving Private Ryan is exactly the same as that. They are Hollywood superstars and they are telling the story of D-Day, but it's so much grittier and realistic and darker and so much gorier. And I think that opening 20 minutes does that on its own. And then you get like the story kind of calms itself down as they go and actually do the thing they're set to do.
Yeah, the opening 20 minutes kind of reminded me of a horror film, and it's essentially, I think it was I don't know who actually said it, but it was like John Krasinski said a director told him something when he was directing A Quiet Place, and it's like when you've got the audience held down, don't let go, and that's basically what this does. Because it's kind of, I forgot how long that sequence is, and it really pushes its limits to the very edge. And it's, I think Charlie just said this, but it's immersive. It really, really is. Like, you don't need 3D to be immersive. Like, you shoot like this, you make a film like this, you do opening 20 minutes like this, and you feel like you're in it, because it's relentless. And that's the main thing that it is. It's non-stop. It keeps going. They're not shy to just kill people off straight away who we've just met. The doors open and people are just shot like that, and like no one we will know will remember, but it's still part of their and they said crew, part of their unit, part of the unit, and it'll be people that they know. And it's just, there are these near misses. Some people die. There's that bit with there's a guy with guts hanging out, and it's even kind of, it's pretty brutal in the fact that they're looking for ammo and there are people just dying, and they just take the ammo from them and leave them there, because what else can they do? In fairness, like, they have to protect themselves and get on with their mission as well. It is a brilliant 20 minutes, and there's one bit that stuck with me, and I don't know why this sticks with me, but Tom Hanks is picking up his helmet, and it's in the bloody water, and he puts it on, and this bloody water sort of pours all over him. It's like, good Lord, it's just like this beach and this water has gone from, looking as it was, to 90% red in the space of 10 minutes before they get to the end. But there are set pieces like that throughout. Like, they're just relentless. Obviously, there are parts where it stops and starts and stops and starts, as these films do. But that 20 minutes, that first 20 minutes, it's really good. I would say it's not my favorite bit, but I think it's really good.
Yeah, I'm glad you sort of point at the horrors of it now, because it's so, this film's 2 hours 49 minutes, and I think we live in a probably more accepting society now of longer films. Certainly, we get it more in blockbuster releases that we'd never have had sort of even 5 years ago, let alone sort of 25. And what's kind of fascinating is you look at a lot of time in this, that half that opening scene, you're sort of just watching, and that's where you sort of get a documentary feel that. You mentioned the guy with the guts out. There's the one of he's like grabbing his arm off the floor, the flamethrower being blown up, and I think the one thing that always gets me is the ones that are drowning, because that was such a not a common thing in the war, but that did happen. And I think what it does is, again, what Spielberg's done with this film and with this set piece, he hasn't just shown this heroic Tom Hanks just running up and charging through and taking out the D-Day landings. Obviously, he's not Captain America, and Captain America doesn't even do that in its own right. But it's almost paying respect in the most horrific possible way to those that did happen to. And I think the bit that always gets me is when you get the grown men sort of like screaming for their mum, because that was so common. And as you said, Neil, when they're just taking the ammo off them, or the medics are picking and choosing, like, no, he's not going to make it. We'll go to this one. And it's so uncomfortable to watch. And it's endearing at the same time, because Spielberg's choosing to show this, and it goes back to Schindler's List of, he is not shying away from the horrors at hand of that. He is showing it, putting it at the forefront. And Charlie, even Amistad, we spoke about that he wanted Amistad to be educational in his own right. This film, to me, does the same thing. He's presenting history. Obviously, there are some historical inaccuracies, as there would be in any production, any wartime film. but his intentions are clear, and it to me is to educate and show the viewers at home this is what happened. And he said we haven't even got to the story of beginning of who even is Private Ryan, what is the context behind Saving Private Ryan, and it's such an important set piece. And I don't think a war film's ever done it since. And it shouldn't be a competition of who's going to do what X, Y, and Z thing. But it's always fascinating when you see different directors' inputs on war films. We've laughed about Michael Bay. We spoke obviously about Spielberg. You've got Nolan's version of Dunkirk as well. And it's always really interesting. You meant 1917, obviously, a recent one too. It's amazing how people are able to put their stance onto it. And I think that in turn brings in people to view the film. But it's just with this one, it is that documentary aspect, and you just sort of can't shy away from it. And when you mentioned Tom Hanks, there are stories of when when the door comes down. Apparently, the time that Tom Hanks almost forgot he was acting because it was so. Because he knew it was special effects. Apparently, in interviews, he's always spoke about saying it just felt so real, just seeing that happen. And you can only imagine. I mean, it's almost a point of view from behind the door, but imagine like being an actor on set, and it's just one of those where, again, if that was done today, would we get 1,500 extras on set?
No.
I know Dunkirk did. I know 1917 did, but again, they're big name directors, and I think we would get the CGI army that tends to be in there these days. And I give a shout out to Fury, to shout out Brad Pitt, because I think Fury is a very good film.
That's a great film.
And I think the Tank Museum, I forgot about the country it's in, has a lot of stuff from that film. I forgot whereabouts England is actually, but I implore people, like, just as a sign for this episode, this video today, like, if you're not familiar with stuff like D-Day, which is quite scary, I think people might not be, please do take the time out to educate yourself. Like we did for Schindler's List, we'll put some links in the description as well, because we love these films, we're talking about these films, but at the same time, it is good for people to be educated in that regard as to what did happen. And certainly for this is modern history, and we're living in a society where they're trying to pretend events from the same sort of window never happened with the Holocaust. So it's only a matter of time until sort of morons start saying the same thing about things like this, without getting to that too much. But if we do come out to Omaha Beach later, we'll come out to it. But if we actually want to talk about the story now, the saving of Private Ryan. Charlie, I'm going to come to you.
Okay.
Without even getting to Matt Damon first, actually. How do we feel about the? We've had this incredible 20-minute opening. We've even had the scene at the beginning with the ambiguous characters to who it is, who've been made to believe is Tom Hanks, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
How do we feel about the actual story of this film being, we've got to take this kid, we've got to bring him home to his parents because all his siblings have died? Because I really like it. I think it's simple, and it's an effective way for Spielberg to go on this go on this path with these individuals. And I just want to know how you both feel, again, with that as an actual key story point.
Well, I mean, I think whenever you're telling a war story, you need to have some kind of like emotional complication. Hook or distress, or actually a film that I just thought of it whilst you were talking then about the other films that people should see. It's obviously a different war, but this really there's a lot of similarities between this and Hacksaw Ridge. I think the level of, particularly the level of visuals. I remember seeing Hacksaw Ridge on the super screen in like the third row and nearly throwing up about 3 times because I was like, Jesus, that is actually someone's intestine in my face. But it also has that same emotional weight because obviously Andrew Garfield's character in that is a pacifist, and that's the story, and I think that's really clever. In this, it's like they have a mission to do, which is doable, and they know they can do it, but the hook is whose lives are more important. Where is what how do you, if it means saving one person or saving 10 people, where do you make that decision? And really that's what this comes down to. It's not the fact that it's all these characters together walking across France. It's about the weight. And actually I'm not going to remember any of the actors' names or any of the characters' names, so I do apologize, but there is one of the members of the group who has that turmoil all the way through. Is why are we risking our actual brothers' lives for this guy we've never met? We don't even know if we're going to find him. We don't even know if he's alive. We don't know where he is or what he's done or where he could be now, and we're risking our own lives for that. And he questions it all the way through. George, you can probably remember his name,
Yeah.
the one I'm talking
Private
about.
Ryburn.
The one that's in The Holiday. That's how I remember.
Not seen it, sorry.
Oh God.
I know Hans Zimmer did the score for it though.
It was a great film.
No,
But yeah, that's why I think it works so well, because it's quite a simple, the actual plot is quite simple, but the weight of the plot makes you question everything all the way through it.
yeah, I do have issues with the sort of morals of it, and like there are soldiers constantly questioning it, and I think they're absolutely right to question it, because I think I would, because you're sort of making someone's life more valuable than everyone else's. But yeah, you need that emotional hook. You need that some sort of storyline to tell this story, and I think it is a really good one. I think it is very well justified, because you kind of think about like this person wouldn't want their mum to suffer, so they're going to help protect this mother from losing yet another son. So yeah, it's well justified. I have issues with the morals of it, but I think this film is designed to question those sorts of things. I don't think it's supposed to be like flat, straightforward.
And I think that's the difference between, and I think that's what makes it clever, is that this is a story about World War II from an American perspective. And the American way is very different to the British way. You know, like we're very like, no emotion, we don't cry, we're here to do a job. The American way is very much fueled by you can't be a traitor, and you've got to put people's families first, and all under the eyes of God. And it's all very like, it is all very much about their morals, and you do get the sense of what it is that they get embedded in them in their training, is that you've been given a job to do, and you have to do it, or you quit, or I shoot you. You know, like it's so heavy. I mean the price of war is heavy for everyone, but I mean I think it was really interesting seeing World War I'm quite obsessed with World War II films, so like the differences between them from an American or a British perspective. I think that's really apparent, particularly in this film, because it is such an American film.
Yeah, the family point is an interesting one, because it's got Vin Diesel in it, and he fucking loves family.
He loves family.
Yeah.
Hey,
What goes on about? He even tries to save a family. Of course he does.
Yeah, exactly. This happens. He tries to save a family member.
Because she reminds him of his niece.
Oh, what a tit. All these great actors, and then you've got Vin Diesel.
Oh, come on, he's great in it. We can't knock him.
Back to back. His two films of 98 and 99 are the two best films of his career. But for those that don't know this, I'm not even being sarcastic. It's Saving Private Ryan and The Iron Giant. It's not to diss Marvel. It's not to diss the Fast films. But it's kind of sad that
films, that's fine.
No, but we love them. We love them here. But it's mad. Like his best films were 23 and 24 years ago, and he was like an up and coming star. Although I love The Chronicles of Riddick. I don't like the first one, but when it was called The Chronicles of Riddick, which is actually the second one, which makes no sense, but it does have Dame Judi Dench in for no reason at all. Yeah. And it's basically just his version of Dungeons and Dragons, isn't it? Like it's like an origin in that regard, that he loved Dungeons and Dragons and made a kind of film like it. It doesn't really make sense. And sorry, that's a lot of Vin Diesel talk.
Too much on video.
No, let's keep talking about Vin Diesel and how he actually sucked in this film.
Well, he is Groot.
He is Groot. Anyway,
and I think I kind of want to come with what you both said. That you're right, that the plot of this, it's more about the characters, and it's like the moral code, isn't it? Like, where do you stand? And each soldier's reflected in a different way. And I think as the film grows, the resent of Ryan grows, which kind of makes it even more incredible. And I've just got to bring up something which I didn't know, that when they began boot camp for this, I actually want to bring up the name of the ex-military commander who's involved, Day or Die. If anyone hasn't heard of him, he's like a legend of the Vietnam War, and he created the production company, who I've completely forgotten the name, which is very embarrassing. But they have gone on to basically like be technical advisors across many war series, war films. It might be called Warrior Inc. I'm pretty sure they've been involved in games as well. I do need to double check that. I really hope it is then, because if it's not, I've embarrassed myself. And when they all did the boot camp for this, Spielberg's premise was it that he didn't just want to put them in boot camp so they'd get hard or get tough or know how to shoot guns. He wanted them to experience what troops would have had to have experienced. And it was more for that angle. But even better than that, and I think this is genius, whether this is Spielberg's choice and actors or producers, I don't know. Matt Damon didn't go in any boot camps with them. So he went in completely scot-free so that they could resent the fact that he hadn't been in training with them.
Excellent.
So when they got to meeting him, there was already a bit of behind the scenes, which I think is excellent. And it kind of makes it funnier. Yeah, and this is what makes it so much funnier. Is like, I think it's a massive positive film that, and we'll get into characters a bit, but Matt Damon's obviously like one of the biggest names from this film now, which makes the whole thing incredible.
No.
Exactly, and we'll get to speak. We'll get to that for anyone that doesn't know what came up before. But if we're talking, some of the I mean, actually, we're almost at the characters. We spoke a lot about the story. I mean, I guess we want to talk about Tom Hanks, Captain Miller.
Always want to talk about Tom Hanks.
Surprised me. It was his first film of Spielberg, which,
yeah,
I didn't really. I mean, he's been in so many. There's always going to be a first one somewhere, but I never thought it was Saving Private Ryan when I was younger. I just always assumed. Well, I say younger, like this year. I just assumed they'd been in one in the 80s I hadn't seen or something.
And how many has he done since? Like,
oh God,
many.
I'd bet on 7. I'll bet on 7. I'll bet on 7. Someone comment it. I bet there's probably 7. That sounds like a good number. And he almost did star in Hook though, which I'm glad he didn't read that. Go check out a Hook review. That was I don't think any of us could have seen Tom Hanks as Peter Pan. That would have been a bit.
Oh, he was going to be Robin Williams'
character. Yeah.
I thought he was going to be Hook.
Oh no! Oh God, Dustin Hoffman's really great for that. No, but because Spielberg almost directed Big, which I still haven't seen. Which is obviously what Tom Hanks was also in. So
you should not be allowed to even say Tom Hanks's name until you've seen Big.
Listen, his best film's this, and then it's Toy Story, and then it's fair game for anything else. And I'm not dissing Philadelphia.
I can't even get involved in this.
But also, Woody's not even the best Toy Story character. Let's be blunt.
True.
Let's change the subject there.
Don't be sexist.
No, she's just not Buzz Lightyear, is she? That's all it is. Don't worry. How do we feel with? How do we all feel with Captain Miller? I mean, it's an interesting one because Tom Hanks, to me, and this one's really unfair because I do love him, and we've just seen the Elvis film where he really wasn't himself, which is another conversation. I feel that Tom Hanks was kind of not typecast as himself, but he's such a star in his own right. He was almost Tom Hanks in every film he's in. And this is one of the films of his where I feel like it's Tom Hanks, but Tom Hanks doing something different whilst being Tom Hanks at the same time. Like, does that make any sense?
Tom Hanks,
it's like Inception. Yeah, like it's interesting this because I've never imagined him as a physical actor, i.e. being in a war film. I'm not saying he was never not in shape, but I love the fact of this, that he's the caps of the squad. He is the lead, but he never feels like you've just put a big star in here that's sort of out of his depth with the younger actors around him. I've always felt like he's had a perfect fit into the character, and where his sort of moral ambiguity comes into it, I sort of really admire because I feel like it is different to his other films, if that works for anyone.
I think people always say Tom Hanks is just Tom Hanks in everything he does, which to me is not a compliment. And it really annoys me because the reason people say it, for the same reason people say it about Nick Cage, is because they have got such recognizable voices. And I think the reason people say it with Tom Hanks particularly is because no matter what accent he's doing, he will always sound like Woody. Like he will always sound like Tom Hanks. But actually, he's one of, in my opinion, the greatest actors working today, and has been working for the last 40, probably nearly 50 years now. I don't think this is by any means his best role, but I do think this role fits him like a glove. Like he has that like kind of fatherly He's got the kind of compassion of a father, but also the kind of sternness and I'm in charge and you have to listen to me whether you like it or not kind of attitude as well, which I think is really nice. And I think you touched on it, George, where he doesn't tell them anything about himself outside of the war, because they're not there to make friends. They're not there to, reminisce about life outside and, all of that kind of thing until a moment where it's needed. It's almost like he holds that back as ammunition as well, which is really clever. But I mean, I will never, ever have a bad word to say against him, because I think he is just one of the most watchable actors that we have.
I used to find him kind of annoying.
I know,
years ago.
I find him annoying.
I'm the same. I'm the same. I used to be that a lot as well. I'm the same.
Yeah.
I was young. I was naive. It hasn't happened since. I'm quite a big fan. I've got his IMDb up, and his first role was in 1980. So he's been in films for 42 years.
Incredible.
Do you want to know a better statistic? Guess who he shares a birthday with?
You?
Yes.
Oh.
Well guessed.
Oh, wait.
Is that a better
that's right.
statistic or
No, I'm good. Yeah. I'm pretty sure like there's someone really big on July the 8th. I was like, oh, why did I get Tom Hanks? Like, I was really good when I was younger.
Tom Hanks good.
That's a good one.
I know, but when I was younger, I'm pretty sure there's like someone great on July the 8th. I've completely forgot who it is. I'll have to check.
We'll look it up.
You know, everyone's done that when they're younger, right? You like find the celebrity date that you share birthdays with.
Do you know what happened on my birthday? Monica and Chandler got married.
Really?
Yep. Carry on.
Anything with yours, Neil?
That's a pretty good one. My birthday is
not the best couple from Friends.
In Friends. She says May 15th. That's my birthday.
Yeah, but it's anyway, my birthday, I don't know. Anyway, Tom Hanks is a very good actor.
How do we feel about the crusade though? Like because the bit that works for me is when all the squad's against him and he's still in belief of ultimately they're orders, and he can't refuse orders or he will die or be thrown in jail, whatever. But you understand morally, like he agrees with the mission, and you reach boiling point. We'll get to Matt Damon shortly, but you do reach this moment of when Matt Damon's like no, and you just see like Tom Hanks is just ready to shoot him in the head. If I'm being honest. How do you feel about the whole mission, like his squad below him? Because as we said, it makes such an interesting divide. But for the captain to be the one that has the moral authority, I think really works in his favor, and that plays to Tom Hanks' strength as an actor.
Yeah, and I think his character, the way I saw it, is that he believes he's on borrowed time. Like, I think he thinks he probably shouldn't have survived the beach, and so he's like, well, I've been told to do this with whatever time I've got left, so I'm just going to do it because there's someone back in America waiting for their sons to come home, and she's only getting one of them, and that's on me. So I think to an extent, I think his character has already kind of accepted that he will be paying the ultimate price eventually. So he may as well do whatever he can with what time he's got left. And I think that that's really powerful because he, in a way, as the leader of the group, kind of needs to be spurring them all on and keeping them going, where internally maybe he's already kind of emotionally kind of given up. But yeah,
I think he's obviously, he's captain, so he's older, he's got more experience, so he is someone more likely to follow orders. And having someone like him who is essentially sort of the moral, I've just seen a Walking Dead thing pop up. Anyway, he's almost the moral center of the film. I can see you looking it up.
I'm not.
And he's kind of like passing that on to all of his soldiers in his squad. So he's kind of trying to pass on to just essentially to do the right thing, to follow orders, whether you agree with them or not. If you're in the army, you have to do that. And obviously there is a moment when one of them nearly walks off. There's plenty of people questioning him. There is a particular moment where I think all of them are questioning him, and he's kind of making sure that he's the one in charge and he's the one following the orders and making sure everyone else falls in line. But it's rare to see him sort of lose it, which is really interesting. He's kind of fairly calm and centered. But I think there's something until he's not. Yeah, but I think there's something to what you said, Charlie, about he's book almost on borrowed time. I never really looked at it like that, but like that before. Excuse me, I can't even talk. And I think that's absolutely right. And I've never really looked at it like that before. But he's just trying to do the right thing, and I don't think he always does. But
I think part of the problem is he doesn't know what the right thing is to do, because they're in such an inhumane, unnatural situation. He's just got to either follow orders or follow his instinct. There's no point in him trying to weigh up the moral. It's literally just like, well, I've got to get somewhere, so I'm going to get there, like however I can.
And it's his moral code that gets him killed, which
exactly.
Slightly, and I want to say that's a really good point. I'd never imagined the borrowed line thing, the borrowed time, but it makes perfect sense, especially when you land on the beach and it's he's sort of taking it in, isn't he, when he's seeing everyone around him sort of going, except himself, and that's a really fascinating take actually. And kind of with that, if we want to talk, we'll move on to the next. So what we'll do, we'll talk about Ryan next, and then we'll just go over the squad. We're not going to go into everyone individually, but for any characters that I think Corporal Upham is going to have a big bit. But if we actually talk about Private Ryan, played by a very young Matt Damon, which is, I guess we can say, I was going to say, it's obviously not pre-Good Will Hunting, which we'll get to. I forgot the one in 1999 that came after, the murder one with Jude Law. I've not seen it still.
Talented Mr. Ripley.
Yeah, I've not seen that many Matt Damon films, although my favourite Matt Damon...
We're doing a Matt Damon retrospective, I've just decided.
Can we include... Team America?
No.
Yeah, he's in that. Yeah.
No.
Yep.
He loves it. He signs autographs for us. It's good enough for us.
Do a Matt Damon live action retrospective.
Interstellar, get in. This is what surprised me. So they wanted someone that was more of an unknown. They didn't want a big name, which I really respect, because I know another film did that. We can't talk about as much anymore. Obviously, Seven did the same thing with Kevin Spacey. They wanted someone that wasn't a well-known name to be their main villain. And then The Usual Suspects came out the year before, which kind of destroyed that. And not as big a capacity here, but Good Will Hunting came out the year before. At the time of casting Matt Damon, which the filming would have been the same year Good Will Hunting came out, I guess, which is worth mentioning straight away. No one expected that film to be as big or successful as it was. Now, I haven't seen Good Will Hunting, so I'm just going to pass the baton on to Charlie. Tell us contextually sort of what that would have done for his career, and because they didn't need to not mark him for this film, but I guess they just wanted like a kid almost, didn't they?
Can we boot George off his video for not having seen Good Will Hunting? What the fuck?
I feel like this has been brought up before.
You've been friends with me for how many years now, and you haven't seen it? It's like my favorite film.
It feels like a
no. I've seen your favorite film. No, Charlie's favorite was Breakfast Club, and I did watch that.
Yeah.
It's my second.
And Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
That's not one of my favorite films.
No, it's one of mine.
It's a John Hughes film, though. So
I love John Hughes, but it's not The Breakfast Club. Anyway, we're not talking. I mean, I could talk about John Hughes all night if you want me to, but no. What was the question? How much do I love Matt Damon?
Wow.
Why are you so
you can go for
it. So, yes, Good Will Hunting obviously put him and Ben Affleck both in the spotlight. But like you say, when he was cast in this, people didn't know who he was. People probably knew Ben Affleck. I think he'd done quite a bit beforehand, but yeah, I mean, I think Good Will Hunting was still an independent film, and although it did very well in the awards, it still probably wasn't as widely seen as Saving Private Ryan. And I think this film probably really kicked him like into the stardom that he has managed to hold on to. But I think there would have been a lot of people watching Saving Private Ryan going, oh, that's the guy from that film about therapy that we watched last year, which is great because they're obviously such different characters and such different roles for him. I mean, he's in every scene of Good Will Hunting. In this, he's in how much screen time does he have? Probably like 10 minutes, something like that,
isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. So, but I have seen an interview where he talks about what Saving Private Ryan did for him, and it really did kickstart his career, regardless of the fact that he already had an Oscar at the time. But I think he kind of does put everything on this role particularly, and rightly so, because he's incredible in it. Because he's incredible in everything he's in.
Yeah, sure. He's really good. He's really good in like Firefly, Castle, all that stuff. Oh, wait, that's Nathan Fillion. Sorry.
Nice!
Very good.
There
Isn't
you
that
go.
another great moment that both Private Ryans went on to become
God.
big names?
Yeah, and also I
Completely.
totally forgot Nathan Fillion was in this, and I
Yeah.
was watching it, and I was like, "It's Nathan Fillion." Love
So
him.
good. I was very happy to see him. It was just like it was. I don't know if they mean for those moments to be comedic, but it was fucking funny. It just like
It is funny, but
like
that's
it's so good.
that's how this film plays with the characters' emotions, and at the same time plays with the audience's emotions, because it's like that. Sorry, I'm hogging again, but there's the moment on the beach where there's back at the start where the guy is like lift he gets shot in the helmet, but it doesn't do it. He takes it off, and the guy he's with is like, "You lucky son of a bitch," and then gets shot in the head, and it's like, that's not supposed to be funny, but it's the timing and the way it's written, and then it makes the audience go, "Oh my god, this is not funny. Why am I laughing?" And it makes everybody question their morals as an audience member, but then also the character's morals within the moment. It's such a good film.
The timing thing goes back to the horror element of this film. Like
Right.
horror and comedy are so similar in terms of how it plays with your emotions, timing, and things like that. And I love stuff like that. The Nathan Fillion sort of fake out is really good. And I must admit, I think I forgot most things about this film until I watched it on Thursday. So I'm kind of glad that it was almost like a fresh viewing for me. And I forgot all about that bit, but it also made me think that there's got to be fucking loads of Private Ryans in America and anywhere else. Like, that's a fairly basic name.
Paratroopers as well, like same battalion. Like that would for a war have millions and millions of people fighting in it. It would have happened, and that's where I guess the state. I mean, we're from England, right? To them to say a state, there's probably more than one James Ryan in Ohio as well.
Yeah.
But he's. I don't know if it's. I think it's an hour. No, it's 1 hour and 50 minutes is when we, I think, first see Matt Damon, and that's sort of. I timed it, and that's when it's like, oh, okay, so there's like an hour left, and like this is where we get to the title character. So that's a really interesting thing to do. I think films that can do that and kind of get away with it and still be able to tell the story are phenomenal. Like that's where the writing really came to play, because it was really good. And he was such an interesting character. I think there's a wonderful scene where he's telling this story about him and his brothers and like the last time the four of them together. And it's great. He's just pissed himself the whole time, really laughing, really, really good.
It's ad-lib as well.
Oh, was it? See, this is what I wonder. It felt like it was. And it just
it's so awkward because it doesn't stop, and that's exactly what they wanted. Sorry to jump in on that, but that's one of my favorite.
It's one of my favorite. I think it's a great moment, and the fact it's ad-libbed is amazing. It doesn't surprise me, but because it felt like it kind of was, and it felt like a pure moment that anyone else would have if we're telling a story about that we found really funny, and you'd just be laughing your head off about the whole thing while someone's kind of laughing along with you, not really. It's a great moment. It kind of shows his character really, really well. And I think that's the main moment of his character where we see what means so much to him. Obviously, his family means a lot to him. So it's a shame he didn't get to meet Vin Diesel, but whatever. But it's still like it's a wonderful moment, and it says so much about him and what he's lost in this war. Because I don't feel like I feel like that's one thing missing from this film. I think that's where we see some emotion from him when he loses his brothers, but not as much. I think it's hard to sort of amp that up and focus on it. I think there is a moment, and there is obviously this bit where he's talking about his brothers, but there isn't a lot of that.
Well, I think his character's emotion is the bookend of the film. It's him as an old man at the grave with his family, and that to me is genius, because you're just conditioned to think that must have been Tom Hanks all the way, Tom Hanks's character all the way through until the very last scene, that incredible transition where you're like, of course it's not Captain Miller, because it's so well written, because you could probably watch the film 2 or 3 times before you remember that the old guy at the start is Matt Damon, not Tom Hanks. And I just think they just took the audience into consideration in every single minute of this film. They wanted to be able to understand the thought process of people watching it all the way through, and I think that's such good filmmaking.
This is where GIFs and Twitter are annoying. So I was tweeting that I was going to watch the film, looking for a GIF.
I couldn't find a GIF to put when I was doing it as well.
Bloody GIF that came up was the transition of him to an old man. It's like, oh, great. So I know exactly who that is in the start of the film. It's like, ugh.
Yeah.
Oh, well. They're still really well done. Yeah, I agree.
The story thing I want to jump back to, I think what makes that scene work so much more is if you watch Tom Hanks in it, because he's obviously very guided about his personal life, and you kind of understand why, because there's probably only so many soldiers that would go into that, then probably have you'd imagine a wobble in a battle or something, or bringing up it opens wounds and whatnot. And the amazing story of Matt Damon is he's just talking about his brothers, and we know he's forgotten they've died, and you just know, and the way he plays that scene. Like, he's obviously excited to talk about it, but you can see he's emotional, and there's just this one bit of Tom Hanks when it's after he laughs and he realizes, like, shit, like, he's still going. And it's just like, he has forgotten his brothers have died, and obviously then you get the revelation that, and he says, oh, that was the last day the 4 of us together. Like, that's going to be the crux of it. And, because the story itself, it's not funny, it's really stupid.
Yeah.
But that works because it's a kid. He's a kid. Like, we know I think this sounds really weird. It's not criticism of the film at all, and it's not intended to be, but because Matt Damon's had such an incredible career post this film, pre this film, I guess, as well, it's because we've seen what has gone on to do, it kind of makes that scene slightly harder to view and follow me with this, because he's so recognizable now. Whereas had that been someone that never really did anything else, he'd almost have this trapped ideology as that's Private Ryan. But we know it's young Matt Damon, which also works his favor, not for memes and stuff, not for this one, but it's kind of like, oh my god, it's Jason Bourne, like it's all that sort of stuff that comes with it, and it's really interesting. This, and what I love with his character is, I don't want to bring it into Harry Potter, I'm going to have to. Like Harry Potter, he's sort of like, I didn't ask anyone to die for me.
Yeah,
he kind of has the same attitude of the squads.
Well, the look on his face in his closing moment, like the amount of questions and emotion going through his eyes as he's looking down at Captain Miller, and I mean, it's probably one of his finest moments of acting, where it is just pure devastation on his face, because he doesn't know what's his whole life has changed in the space of like a couple of hours or something. It's just incredible.
And it's the sort of ending bit as well, the transition. The big thing is obviously when we did Schindler's List, obviously it's very, very different, but the concept of the Schindler, obviously that's real. The Schindler Jews is that generations will live because of what Schindler did, which is a real thing. There are thousands and thousands of people that exist from those he saved, and the generations that followed. In that scene, to have his family with him at the grave is that reflection of, we know that none of them are there without the sacrifices, and he knows it too. And that's why it's so important for him. And, then you go back to the beginning of the film, you see his breakdown. It's such an integral moment. And I actually think, you wouldn't change anything about the film, but the opening and closing scenes are far more important and have far more emotional weight than I think people speak about them. I think because they're so engrossed by the 20-minute D-Day stuff, they tend to forget about the opening scene. And I've been a victim of that too. Sometimes I call the D-Day the opening scene, and really it never is. It's always been the second scene of this film. And if we want to talk about the squads, listen, I'm not going to go through everybody individually because there's a lot of them. But I just want to, I'll go through the names. You've got Ryburn, played by Edward Burns, who obviously, was against the mission from the get-go. You've got Sergeant Horvath, played by Tom Sizemore, who was the right-hand man to Captain Miller. You've got Corporal Upham, who I think we'll probably get into, played by Jeremy Davis, who is a very, very interesting character, probably the most real character, I think, of the lot. Private Mellish, played by Adam Goldberg. Of course,
is that
Adam
Fish?
Goldberg. Yeah.
And
He's been in loads of stuff since, which is always the
Eddie
interesting
from
one.
Friends.
Yeah.
Al.
Private Jackson, played by Barry Pepper. Sorry, I'm thinking of Friends now. We've got Private Jackson, who is the sniper, who is one of the, I think a fan favorite, but one of the most recognizable characters
great
in war films. We've mentioned Vin Diesel, Private Capazzo, not Private, Toretto, as it probably should be. And we've got Wade, which is Giovanni. I can never pronounce his name. Giovanni Ribisi.
Giovanni
also
Ribisi,
Phoebe's brother from Friends.
also known
not
as
Friends.
Frank Jr.
Yeah. Does anyone? I really want to talk about Corporal Upham.
Frank Jr. Sorry, I added an extra junior. That's his son.
Oh yeah, that's his son. Yeah.
He's also the guy from Avatar, the Unobtainium.
He is the guy from Avatar.
What a great name for an element. Oh, I've just got to get me some Unobtainium. Good one. Corporal Upham.
I love Avatar. Carry on.
I mean, I'm trying. I mean, Avatar 2 is coming this year, so people we're not too far away. Talking about Corporal Upham is really interesting because he's one of the most hated characters of this film, in the film and outside the film. And I actually think he's not the most tragic character of the film because he survives the events of it, and many people die because of him. But Corporal Upham is a fascinating one because I'm not going to say I'm a coward. I'm just going to be blunt. I've probably never said this on the internet, and I hope I'm never in a war because I want to find out. I've got no idea how to be in a war. I mean, I'm not physically fit, so I wouldn't have to. I'm just being honest. But about to train for it, who knows? But I don't know how I'd be. And I've had very close friends that have been in the army. I've got an uncle in the Navy, and I'm very familiar with that sort of thing. And I've got nothing but respect for it. And it's fascinating parenting to me because I just don't know how I would be, which is why I have this really weird connection to Corporal Upham, where I think, he's in the war, he's like a typewriter, he's doing news things, he's never held a gun since basic training, and he's thrown into this deep dive because he can speak German and French as well as English. And obviously he's a coward. We're not going to hide it from him. And this is where I'm kind of torn in because, his deeds have people killed, but I feel he's the most, certainly of the modern era of I'm not going to say the YouTube lot because that sounds ridiculous, but I don't want to sound like a boomer and say Generation Z either. But it's I think there'd be a lot more people like him than we'd ever imagine, which is a really trying thing. I don't want to see a war happen. I don't want to be in a war. And again, respect those that have fought and everything in that regards. But his character, I'm just always gripped by, and I feel that he's like a moral compass for the entire film. Because ultimately, he commits a war crime by killing a POW at the end of the film. But in the same way, he saved a POW who would go on to kill Captain Miller and be responsible for the death of other characters. So how do we feel of Corporal Upham? Because I think he's a fascinating character and one of the more layered characters of this. And again, what you said earlier, Charlie, it's the whole squad. The whole squad are characters, are humans. And he's another dimension to it.
Yeah, and I think because he comes into a group that they all refer to themselves as brothers, and they've got all these nicknames for each other and war slang that they all use that he doesn't understand. He speaks 3 languages fluently, but doesn't understand all the sort of jargon they've created between themselves and stuff like that. What's the one that they say all the way through, and then he figures it out? Fumar with an American accent. But I think he's incredible. I think he's a brilliant actor.
Sorry, I've just remembered. Yeah, fucked up beyond all recognition.
That's it. Yeah.
There we go.
And I love that he spends the whole time doesn't he say it when he first comes into it that he's writing a book about brotherhood within the war, and he's trying
a typewriter, hasn't he?
Well, he wants to take it with him, and then obviously Captain Miller's like, "Don't be stupid."
Isn't Tom Hanks like a massive typewriter collector?
Yeah,
he collects. Did it come from this film or before?
No, it comes from before, but I think he has the typewriter from this film in his collection. I might be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure he has some from sets, and I think this is one of them. But yeah, I love. I was going to call him Daniel Faraday. Nearly came out.
Definitely is that. That's his running.
Corporal Upham, brilliant character. Makes stupid decisions, but completely relatable and understandable why he makes those decisions. And I feel for him. I think he wasn't trained or ready for what he was about to be thrown into. Yeah, I think he's fascinating.
Yeah, I don't think he's a coward, though. I think Georgie said he thought he's a coward, but I don't think that he is. I think that he's someone who's just been thrust into this world where it's not sort of, there'll be plenty of people who are just in this because they've been drafted and there's nothing they can do. Whereas he's there and he's trying his best, and like he's essentially being bullied by these people that he's been forced to spend time with. And it's just a bit unfair on him, purely because he knows French and German.
Yeah.
But I think he definitely comes from a place of sort of moral righteousness, and he's very relatable to, I think, a lot of us, because we would question what we would do in that situation where you would kill someone or not. And I think he'd be so pissed off at that decision later on. You would do what he did, I think. Similar to George, I don't want to be in a war either. I have no idea what it's like. Please God, do not recruit me. But it raises so many questions about what's right and what's wrong in a war, because you are effectively being hired, or you're there to kill other people.
But there's also the balance in that the guy who he doesn't kill also doesn't kill him. They kind of have an unspoken agreement when they walk past each other on the stairs, where they're just like, just pretending.
He doesn't laugh, does he? He sort of.
They don't even really look at each other. It's just kind of like, I know what you've just done.
Yeah.
Just keep walking, kind of thing. It's a really interesting balance, and I think that if they made a film from the German perspective, would that soldier have been considered a coward even though he just killed someone? Do you know what I mean? It's like, how many people do you have to kill before you're not told you're a coward?
Yeah.
But I think he's also quite similar to Andrew Garfield's character in Hacksaw Ridge. I think they have the same moral dilemma throughout.
I think that bit on the stairs is an interesting one, because I think he, Daniel Faraday, I'm going to call him that, I don't care. Lost fans, you'll know. He's on the stairs crying because people are dying around him. He's essentially there to provide ammo to all sorts of people. People have been blown up, people have been shot, people have been stabbed, people have been killed. And he hasn't. Nothing's happened to him. So, of course, he's kind of going through this horrendous psychological torture that he's putting himself through. That other person I think he just saw him and thought, there's no point. Let's just leave it and go. Because you could kill him, but it seems pointless. It seems like he's going through enough as it is. It's an interesting one.
The fact that the crew kind of make him they give him the job of just being the guy that carries the ammo. They don't even really expect him to kill. They're just kind of like, you're the runner, you're the assistant.
Yeah.
So we're not going to expect, because you don't really know what you're doing, and we don't know how to speak French and German, so we're going to need you for that. So maybe coward is it's a bit harsh. He's actually just doing what he was told to do, and then he was put into a position where he didn't know what to do. It's
very much a nerd with the jocks sort of situation. Where he's the smart one. He knows this, he knows that. And he's the brains, they're all the bravado, and so they can just pick on him.
And realistically, if he had gone up those stairs to that room where Fish was being killed, he would have got killed. He wouldn't have survived that fight. No chance. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe he was... I don't know. It's a lot of questions, a lot of picking apart of just those few moments of his story.
And like, if I'm going to bring George Lucas into it, as I always do, it's poetry. It rhymes that, not in the nicest way, but he let that the POW saved earlier in the film after Frank Jr. died. I'm just going to say, that's the guy that let him live on those stairs. Yeah, and I think when you get the moment of him mocking them when he puts the gun up them after the bridge explodes, and they're sort of laughing at him, knowing he hasn't got it in him. I mean, that's a pretty powerful moment. And maybe cowardice is an unfair term I use, and I guess that's how I've always seen it presents that. But you really dive into the layers of that character, and it's far from it. And you have to say it feels real. And I would imagine in the war there probably were people that were drafted in that sense. You know,
Yes.
especially if they've been told like you basically got a job on. You know, you're going to go in after everyone else has been in. And you're going to be doing the typing or the other stuff, not that stuff. And then it's like boom, front line, and it's
Well,
actually quite smart.
I just
How-
for the Second World War, I don't think it was drafting. I think it was if you were of age and of health, you fought.
You went.
Drafting
Yeah.
took place during the Vietnam conflict. But yes, you were given a role that suited your abilities. For example, like they weren't going to put Vin Diesel's character on maps and typing. He's, do you know what I mean? Like
Great.
people were well positioned.
I mean,
but yeah, it wasn't drafted in the same way.
Does anyone want to talk about Vin Diesel? I mean, we're not going to go for everyone in the squad because most of them do much, but I just want to say, like, his character is probably the most tragic one because he's just trying to do a noble thing.
I'm going to be completely brutally honest
and say you don't care.
He's
an idiot as well for doing it.
He is, like, he's dumb weight.
It's when you're watching the point of view of the sniper, like you're watching the point of view of the sniper, just watching like who's he trying to give the letter to, and it's got so much tension that set piece, and it's a really random bit. Not to say I love it, but when he gets shot and he like hits the piano, it's such a weird moment because it's so visceral and like the whole family there, the blood on the letter. It's a really sort of torturous moment, and I think it's again like one of his best moments as an actor. You know,
it's a great story, and he's a great character, but
it's falling because his moral code has got him killed, like what's happened to other characters in this.
And also, what did he really think he was going to do? Just carry a child with him on their journey? Like, it's
I didn't think of that.
Gut instinct.
And also, when they send the girl back up, there's a son there. It's like, do you not try and get rid of the brother? You just want to get rid of the daughter.
And then I love that the girl is pissed off at her dad. She's like, why did you do that? You prick. I just think that's great.
I just never believe that moment ever. I just like, he's not a good actor. His performance is terrible.
Oh,
what about the Iron Giant?
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
I think
you've not seen the Iron Giant?
No. Should I see that? Is he the Iron Giant?
Yeah, you definitely should. It's Brad Bird. You definitely should see the Iron Giant.
Brad Bird. Oh, yeah, I love Brad Bird. Okay, fine.
Also, the Iron Giant comes into another Spielberg film that we're going to be talking about soon.
End of the series.
Yeah, I said soon.
November for people at home. That's how long this is going on till.
Yeah, he sucked. Yeah, I just it was a stupid moment done by a stupid man, and he died on a stupid face.
And he's the first one out of the mission as well. Do we want to talk about? I mean, if anyone wants to talk about any of us, we can. But I'm ready to move on to soundtracks. One's probably angry we've done a disservice to these. It's almost like a band of brothers. Hint, nod for later on in this video. I'm going to announce something. We always talk about the score in these films. Obviously, the Steven Spielberg Retrospective, we get to wax lyrical about John Williams. And I've got to the weekly point where I say, yeah, John Williams is great. He's always great. What I am going to say, though, this is a very interesting score because if you look at the heightened action set pieces, most of the time there's no soundtrack, which is kind of what I love. I know that sounds ridiculous because I obviously also love John Williams. And he obviously was nominated for Best Soundtrack for this film as he was. He didn't win it this year. His best piece of music is the beginning and end at the gravestone. And I know it's very triumphant. It's very American. I think before we were talking about it being like, almost like a flag theme song.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a great piece of music that I feel has become synonymous with war films ever since this like soundtracks have tried to do the same thing, games have tried to do the same thing. How do we feel about maybe the score or at least the main theme?
I think it's really interesting because if you compare it to Amistad, the moments in Amistad that should have had silence had a great big booming soundtrack, but in such a short space of time, Spielberg or whoever made the decision to use silence as an actual tool. And it's really interesting that is something that works so well in Saving Private Ryan, and also something that we picked up on in Amistad was that maybe there should have been a bit more silence in it. Almost like they listened to us. But yeah, you're right. It does kind of have like a theme tune. it reminds me of Captain America's theme tune, and I know that's
Yeah.
silly, but it's that
No,
same
it's not silly. It's very good.
patriotic, like boomy, like
It's brass. It's a brass trumpet.
yeah,
You can picture a flag, a theme.
It's quite similar. The sort of signature of it is quite similar, and yeah, like you say, has tried to be replicated time and time again since this film.
Yeah, it's not. I think it's distinctive when you hear it in the film. I don't know if it is outside of the film. I don't think I've heard it
Yeah, no, I agree.
outside of the film. Not that I can remember, but it fits it really well. But I think it's good that you can have a film that uses a score sparingly, and you kind of, rather than just like pelting it with music, they use the sound of tanks, bullets, screaming, people doing all sorts, rather than the score. Yeah, the score is very good. I don't think. Yeah, it's like I said, I don't feel that distinctive. But yeah, I get the Captain America thing. Yeah, I agree.
It's just a great John Williams, Steven Spielberg team up, and it's just reliable. You know, it will always work.
And I think with them choosing to put like the diegetic sounds in for the action, I mean, one of the greatest sound effects, I think a lot of gamers will say the same thing, is the M1 carbine being reloaded, the little ping sounds you get all the way through this. Just again, one of the really weird moments. So after I finished watching this on the Sunday before recording, I went on Facebook, and I'm in a lot of meme groups for the boys to plug that. And someone put it's like the 4 of the greatest sound effects known to man. And the seismic charge, something else, and then it was the carbine rifle being reloaded. I was like, oh my god! Like I've literally just watched Saving Private Ryan. I've never seen a meme about the sound of that gun before. Call of Duty players and people will know, and they did sound like that at the time. But if we're talking to this, so we'll move on from the soundtrack. We're going to talk about the sort of the legacy of this film, which is Understatement. I'm just gonna let's do the numbers. Let's do the stats first. Box office, this made $485 million worldwide. The second highest grossing film of 1998 behind Armageddon, which is
Michael Bay.
Yeah, there again. Definitely not.
I love Armageddon.
This is the better of the two. And you know, I'd be very curious to know. I'm just trying to think of the highest grossing war films. It's not really, shouldn't really be a competition in that regard. I'm just trying to think like of some financial lucratives, because normally war films don't gross like.
It's got to be Dunkirk's got to be up there.
Dunkirk, I'm pretty sure gross like 480 mil, which might actually be similar.
You can't group all war films. You've got to do.
You've got to
Otherwise,
sort of
like Star Wars. That's a war film. Like this is a World War II film.
Yeah, I guess that's a better term for it. I'm just trying to think of 1917. I'm pretty sure made a decent amount, but then COVID came in, so I'm sure there'll be some. Even films like Fury did pretty well, and I think Pearl Harbor made a lot of money as well.
What about Inglourious Bastards? Probably.
Yes, yeah, that would have
done well.
There's probably a box office somewhere. I should have tried to find that, but we're gonna get into the Oscars now.
Oh no. We'll just let you have the ball, George.
Well, I'm going to go over. So this was nominated for 11 at the Academy Awards that year, and it won 5, which is pretty, let's say, pretty good. It would. I mean, I'll just go over some that didn't win first. Best Actor Tom Hanks, didn't know who was nominated for this. Best Screenplay Robert Rodat. Best Art Direction, Best Makeup, Best Original Score. It would then win for Best Sound, Best Sound Effects Editing, Best Film Editing, Best Cinematography again by Janusz Kaminski, and it did win Best Direction. I'm actually going to get to this first. So this is the third Oscar Steven Spielberg has won in his career. He obviously won for Best Film and Best Director in For Schindler's List. Won a Best Director for this film, and he's not won an Oscar since, which is completely
insane.
It's quite surprising that, again, incredible film this. But I remember around the time I was new to watching like Oscar-y films, still haven't seen it. We'll do it later in the series. Lincoln, I remember being one of the years where like he was like nailed on to win, and Lincoln didn't win it. I can't remember what did actually. It's going to annoy me now. But how do we? I mean, let's be blunt. Do you think he deserved to win Best Director for Saving Private Ryan? Is that a rhetorical question? I don't know. But where do you both stand on that? Because I can tell you who he beat.
Yeah, who was he up against?
He was up against Peter Weir from The Truman Show. Terrence Malick in The Thin Red Line, of course, the other war film from '98. Roberto Benigni from Life is Beautiful, and John Madden in Shakespeare in Love. This is best director. This is best director though. We're talking about best director at the moment.
I know that most people would probably put their money on Spielberg for this. I think there's a lot of people that would put up a fight that Life is Beautiful probably should have won. But for me, out of that list, I think it's Spielberg. I think he's the one that deserves it out of those. Although to be fair, I haven't actually seen them all, so
yeah, this feels like a massive accomplishment in directing. So, like, no, I haven't seen the other films either, but I cannot imagine any of them comparing to this and its achievement. Like, it's phenomenally directed. You give him an Oscar for that first 20 minutes. I mean, it's
literally
an amazing opening.
And let's be honest, I think the awards it won were for those 20 minutes.
The
editing,
right? Okay.
Makeup effects. They won because of that 20-minute sequence.
Yeah, I think particularly in makeup, because that would be the main place where they use it with guts flying out and blood on faces and all sorts. You lie there, you scream, where are the guts? Throw them on now. And yeah, it just it feels like that's what at least that award it should have won for directing. And it's a war film that is, when it's in the war, when there are battles and people are combating against each other, it's relentless, but it can also pull back and have these fairly quiet moments as well. Like, there are a few conversations in the church and what have you. I think it's a shame that it didn't win for that.
Yeah.
There's two I want to talk about. One it didn't even get nominated for, which is best visual effects. And this is an Academy thing. This isn't this film. I hate that with the modern era, people only see visual effects as computer-generated images. It's not the Oscar for best CGI.
Yeah.
The visual effect is anything from a puppet being animated to, a computer-generated image to an explosion on the set. They are all visual effects that you are seeing. And I get really annoyed every Oscar year when they just look at the CGI. And it's not that. So, Armageddon got nominated for that with Mighty Joe Young. And What Dreams May Come. Yeah. And of course, the other famous one that didn't win, probably I think still deemed one of the biggest upsets in Oscar history. We'll bring up one of the other ones later on, actually. Was this film did not win Best Film. It, of course, lost to Shakespeare in Love. And it's so hard to take it seriously. Now listen,
Hold on a second. I appreciate that you don't agree, but you cannot sit there and tell me that Shakespeare in Love is a bad film.
It's not a better film than Saving Private Ryan.
I haven't seen it.
Didn't say that. I did not say that, but I'm just saying Shakespeare in Love.
No, I know, I get it, but it's the problem is, I'm just going to read it because this is a real thing that happened. The modern day Oscars, and we'll bring up Harvey Weinstein for a bit because it's pretty. And this isn't to take away from Shakespeare in Love as a film. I'm just going to say this right now. Nowadays with the Oscars, we tend to know what's going to win via marketing, right? More so than the film's quality.
Of course.
And this was the first year where that really kicked in. That the complete marketing campaign from Shakespeare in Love made it beat Saving Private Ryan. It was one of the biggest upsets. It still is deemed one of the biggest upsets. And I also believe Kate Blanchett lost to Gwyneth Paltrow, which also caused a lot of aggro. I've not seen Elizabeth. But everyone knows that this was the year Harvey Weinstein really amped up marketing for the Oscars. And some will say that maybe that's a sign of what's to come. It would have happened inevitably, which it probably would have. And they spoke that apparently for the entire marketing campaign, Weinstein's team would just do the usual PR. No one cares about Private Ryan past the opening 15-20 minutes, blah, blah, blah. And it's kind of sad that the industry's gone in this way, almost like a football game, that you're just there to sing on your opponents. I put my hand up, I do the same. But it's really interesting that this is the one that really kickstarted it, talking about budgets for a marketing for a ceremony. And the Hollywood Reporter did an interview, not an interview, sorry, they did, I wouldn't even call it a sting. When you get Oscar season, you get the usual articles every year, like, oh, this big upset from this thing. Apparently, the quotation spoke to hundreds of Academy members who all would have said they'd have all awarded Best Pictures to Saving Private Ryan now over Shakespeare in Love. That's a different conversation, because I think everybody knows that if Oscars were done 10 years down the line, we all know what films would win. So it's kind of unfair because they are contextually done. But I just want to bring up this incredible stat, and I'll get to bring up. I'm going to make this a guessing game for you two at home, not for you two at home, anyone watching at home, and for you two. Saving Private Ryan is the first of 3 films that won the following things. Right, best film at the PGA's Producers Guild of America, best film at the DGA's Directors Guild of America, best film at the Golden Globes, and it also won Best Director, the Oscar for Best Director. But then it did not win Best Picture. There are 3 films. One is Private Ryan. One came out last decade, and the other one is the decade before that. Can either of you guess any of those 2?
Oh God, that's a lot of films to try and guess.
It's a lot. Just you're basically going to think film, but won it everywhere else. I don't want to bore you, so I'll give you all like 10 seconds, and if not, I'll just tell you what they are, because you'll be annoyed when you realize you didn't get one of them.
Oh, I know one.
Yeah?
Avatar.
No. Sorry, I'm trying not to laugh. Do you want
Why
me
am
to say...
I not to laugh?
Oh, because it's La La Land. I know you love La La Land.
Oh, I like La La Land.
Oh no, sorry, that's Tate.
Good
Sorry, that's
party,
Tate.
yeah, I love
Ignore
La
me.
La
I got everyone mixed up with Tate then. And the other one's Brokeback Mountain. I'm just going to assume that's probably a homophobic thing more than anything else, actually, if I'm being honest.
No, it's because Brokeback Mountain's really boring.
But to win everything but best film, that's the trend thing, though, isn't it?
What's your mouth out? How dare you say that? It's a great film.
But
Beautiful
it's
film.
fascinating, though, isn't it? Because the Oscars are a very different breed. I know that it's going to sound, it's probably really boring for something. It's just moaning didn't win best film. This should have won best film. And I'm just going to say once more, it is an absolute disgrace that Spielberg's only got 3 Oscars in his entire career. And, it's 2 Oscars for directing. I think he's had the second most nominations ever. And I'm just going to make my prediction that this year we have Spielberg versus Scorsese for Best Director at the Oscars. It's a straight-out shootout between those two, because they'll be doing the whole,
What's Scorsese got coming out this year?
Killers of the Flower Moon with Leo and
Flowers
De
of
Niro.
Flowers, something, yeah.
Yeah, but will they give it to Apple? That's the real big question. Oh, they've already done it before. Ignore me. They did it last year. But yeah, how do we feel? Any Shakespeare in Love devotees, please comment your thoughts. But am I just moaning like an old person?
Well, I mean,
probably?
this is also the film that Judi Dench won her Oscar for what has she got, 25 seconds on screen or something ridiculous like that?
Yeah. Was it? Yeah. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if she did anything else quite.
2.5 minutes or something. She has it's the Oscar for the least amount of screen time.
Who did? Oh, of course. I didn't see. I still haven't seen Moonlight. I almost said Moonlight. Then very different. You look fuming. Which is obviously the.
How you got to Moonlight from Judi Dench?
No, because I haven't seen Moonlight, and isn't I haven't forgotten his name. It's gonna be annoying.
Oh, Mahershala Ali.
Mahershala Ali, wasn't he only in one scene for a couple of minutes as well, or something like that?
I've
not seen it.
Moonlight from my memory.
I think it's in a bit more than that, but
even though I have seen it.
Wasn't a fan.
No worries.
But yeah, right. So the Shakespeare in Love thing, I have no opinion on it. But what I will say about the Oscars is that, like I say, it kicked off then. It's become more and more popular to award awards to those who campaign for it, and it's just there are certain awards that all the actor ones, and maybe film and director and what have you, where people can. It's more of a popularity contest rather than a talent contest, which is what it essentially should be. I can't comment on Shakespeare in Love because I haven't seen it, so I don't know. But I think there are some. I will watch it. Don't worry. Lizzie's told me to watch it. I will.
Yes,
listen to it.
Yes, Lizzie.
God, you too. And I think it's a shame that's come that. But yeah, I can't comment on Shakespeare in Love. I will watch it, but it's just.
I do think I do think that that's changing though. I think we might actually be starting to come out of that, because look at Coda and Parasite. There's a lot of films that are actually winning because people might not necessarily agree with them, but they're winning because they're actually doing something different and being a little bit more being a bit braver and a little bit more inventive with what they're doing, rather than just being like,
Yes.
look how many stars we can get in this film. But then this year might change that if it's going to be between Spielberg and Scorsese.
I can't wait. It's just something different with the Oscars. And then the year after, we get the real battle. We get Denis Villeneuve versus Christopher Nolan. And I
against Greta Gerwig, thank you very much.
She's not going to get compared to those two are having a fight for their career Oscar. That's the difference. That's what I meant by that. You know, you either give it to Dune Part 2 or Oppenheimer. I wouldn't want to be an Academy voter for that year.
I'd go for Barbie.
I'd go for Dune.
I'd go for
I'm not going to make an opinion until I've seen both films.
Let's make our 2024 Oscar nomination.
I know.
Lord.
It's going to happen though. It's going to be devastating when that day happens. They're going to look up at each other and have this nod. But at the end of Dharma Rises.
You'll get an Oscar. Everyone gets an Oscar.
Aside from Oscar talk, though, if we jump back to Private Ryan, there's so much that could be said about Oscars. And again, this year was very big for how the ceremonies moved on over the years. Not in a horrible way. Like Return of the King won every Oscar because it's like pat on the back, well done, you've done a trilogy. And I'm gonna hate, and this goes back to this year of Denis Villeneuve not being nominated because they're gonna do the same thing. Oh, you did Dune. Clap your hands, pat on the back. We'll give you your stuff now. Should have had it for part 1. That's my piece. Sorry. It happens a lot.
This year because Coda was absolutely incredible.
Coda's wonderful. I love Coda, but Denis Villeneuve should have won for Best Director.
I wanted Dune to win everything.
Yeah,
who won Best Director?
It won a lot. Jane Campion for
Power of the Dog.
Power of the Dog. Is it better director than Dune? No.
No.
That's the problem. And then they even how do you get 10 nominations and win 6, and not even get direct nominations? Just
that was.
I'm going to get vexed.
I think this is the whole we could.
Yeah, we've tangled. Let's talk about Saving Private Ryan. So we're going to talk about legacies of the film. I mean, this one, this is like not the father of war films. This is the war film where every single person, you get the conversation. Is Apocalypse Now the best, or is it Saving Private Ryan?
Different wars.
And also they're completely different films. I'll be like, well, really, you should be comparing Dunkirk to Private Ryan, and Private Ryan's the latest Dunkirk. Now, what amazed me with this, I'm not bothered about rated R. Spielberg told them all that the film's going to be rated as NC-17 in America. He wouldn't cut it. He wouldn't remove anything. The film would be the film it was. And that's, I think, when we did the Dunkirk, we actually said that, Dunkirk's better. This is 2017. I don't agree with this now. That Dunkirk's better than Private Ryan. It's not. If Warner Brothers had let Nolan make an adult, not I need to see violence, because Dunkirk's a 12A, it's like implied violence. And I'm not desperate to see violence in film, but when you see something as visceral and devastating as this, and then in Dunkirk you do have the scenes of the beach, which in real life was horrific, and they were cut away from some of it by a random body floating in the air after it gets hit by a bomb and is intact. There's little things like that. So that's a little war tangent on the side. But with this film today, people speaking about it, the fact that we mentioned earlier, there are games that were made from this, stuff like Medal of Honor. The person I mentioned earlier, who was the veteran that helped assist this, he helped work on these games as well. Obviously, there was a boom of war films. We mentioned Pearl Harbor. That was a massive film when that came out. We've had so many others, and a lot of them delve far more into the spectacle more so than substance, which I think the substance of this is grossly underrated, which we spoke a lot about today, the characters, because everyone does jump back to the opening 20 minutes. But I just want to kind of, how do you guys feel with this film? Talking about it in 2022, does it feel like opinions have ever changed? For me personally, no. I think, I've grown up knowing this is one of the best films I've ever seen in my life, and I still feel the same way. Is that something arrogant?
I still love it. I hate saying this, and I really hope I don't offend anyone by saying it, but for me, it's a bit too American. It's a little bit too, look how great the Americans are. There's not really any mention of where any other country or whatever come into it other than the baddies of the Germans. There's no talk about who they're there to support or who's already fought for however many years. It's all very much like these are the American heroes, and it closes with an American flag on the screen, and it's all just a little bit, I don't know, maybe it's a little bit too tongue-in-cheek for me, but that's not to say I do think this is a masterpiece. I do think it's a 5-star film, and I think it holds up all these years later. I think it's perfect, other than the Americanisms of it.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. I can't see it being anything else besides 5-star film. I think that American flag at the end is just wound me up. It's so unnecessary.
It's too. It just pushes it over the edge a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't need it, and it's just like I wasn't bothered by the fact that it doesn't mention sort of other people and what have you. I understand your point, but that American flag irritated me because it could have just ended with the older.
They're at the graves in
France.
France.
Yeah.
Just leave it on that. It was so unnecessary, and they felt like they just had to put it in there.
Yeah, exactly.
That bothered me, but I can't see, and besides that, I can't see anyone really calling this film anything but a masterpiece. Like it's a lesson in direction. Like it's a lesson in how to create a war film and how to write one and how to create compelling characters as well. Because in a war film, you could very easily have people who are just killing each other and they're just going through doing their mission and that's it. But otherwise, it's created all these characters who are genuinely interesting, flawed, and layered, whilst having some fantastic action set pieces. It's pretty perfect.
Yeah, I also don't think anyone could direct this except Steven Spielberg.
I agree.
Maybe a Nolan if it was unfiltered. I don't even see him doing that, to be honest. That landing sequence, the opening of this, I just can't. Again, it's that Spielberg. How does somebody do this? And I still don't know. And what I kind of want to say of this, I mean, we speak about legacy of the film. It is very much worth mentioning that Tom Hanks and Spielberg weren't done with the war yet together. They would obviously go on to produce one of the greatest series ever made. Alongside making one of the greatest war films ever made, or films made, in Band of Brothers, and would then follow that up with The Pacific in 2010, and later this year we're getting finally, after 12 years of waiting, Masters of the Air. Now listen, I could wax lyrical about them. I'm just going to announce this. It shouldn't even be a big announcement. When Masters of the Air has a date, has been announced, we will not just be covering it on this channel. In the build-up to it, we are going to be doing reviews for Band of Brothers. We're going to be doing reviews for The Pacific. And our channel will be doing a lot of dedicated stuff in the build-up to that. Of course, we are waiting on a release date, and we have been speaking with Apple in regards to that. That's all I can say at the moment. So, maybe by the time this video goes up, we'll find out a release date. I doubt it. And if I was a betting person, I'd bet on London Film Festival. Which we'll also be attending as we always do. So, Masters of the Air is going to be a massive one for this channel. And again, we'll be able to get into Band of Brothers, which is, if you haven't seen Band of Brothers, I'm pretty sure I did it on a video last year. We spoke about like stuff to binge in lockdown. I put Band of Brothers on the list. You'll recognize like every big British actor from the last 20 years who just turned up in that, whether they're like 15 or 20.
Basically, the entire cast is just absolutely stacked.
It's incredible. So that's a little mini lovely announcement for later on this year. As I said, we do cover TV on this channel. And it'll also be like a nice side thing for the Spielberg stuff, because him and Tom Hanks, the fact they teamed up for that, we're getting 3 different series. If you haven't seen them again, go see them. But that's going to round that part. And before we get to sort of final thoughts, we always speak about like favorite scenes. It's pretty tricky with a war scene. We've spoke a lot about some of the incredible set pieces. We spoke about some of the great moments. But if anyone wants to bring up anything we haven't yet spoke about, I review one to bring it up now. I think I've spoke everything I can, because I'm just talking about the everything I've already spoken about, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such a watchable film. Doesn't feel like nearly 3 hours when you really get stuck into it. And it's one of those films that I actually messaged Neil, and I was like, I put my phone away. I actually put it in another room, because I was like, this film deserves entire dedication and attention. And I don't really think I have a favorite bit as such. I think there's a lot of it that is just so clever and so well done and so powerful. And it launched one of my favorite actors' careers. So I will always be indebted to it.
Vin Diesel, yeah.
Eddie from Friends.
Woody from Toy Story. We haven't even spoke about Breaking Bad. We've got
great.
Breaking Bad, so we don't need
there are so many actors who are in it for 5-minute cameos. There's
Paul Giamatti.
Paul Giamatti, you've got Ted Danson as well.
Oh yeah.
And like, my God, like amazing.
We just needed Larry David to finish the set.
But that's
yeah.
Band of Brothers is like that though. Like
Yeah.
you think you've got like this actor that you love is going to be in it for
Ross
the whole
from
thing.
Friends.
And yeah, David Schwimmer like pops up for like 2 scenes.
During Friends as well, like the biggest point of his career, playing the opposite of Ross.
Yeah.
That was like mega.
He's so good in it.
Oh, he's
I remember like,
great. I love him.
it's just amazing. And yeah, if I'm gonna segue, if I'm gonna talk about my final thoughts on this, I've kind of said it all across the last videos. To me, this is one of the best films ever made. I said this a lot. I've said it with Showing Exist, of course, but this is also one of my favorite films because I do enjoy this genre of film. I don't see them often because I appreciate quality over quantity, but also I'm very excited that they made the jump to TV at a time where TV wasn't the level it is now. And it's going to be pretty incredible seeing a 250 million series come out later this year, which is about the pilots, the flights, not the RF, the American version. So yeah, my final thoughts: masterpiece. We've been speaking about it for almost 2 hours, and I'm not going to say any more than that. What I'm going to say is it's going to be horrific when we get to the top 10 ranking at the end of the series, and I have to somehow rank these films because Reese, who's been on the channel, sent a great tweet earlier this week, is pick the best director in history and put 3 of their best films. And I put Spielberg, and I was like, how have I just missed loads of films because I've already sent 3? And it just no one compares to me in that respect. So yeah, that's all I'm going to say. I've gloated about this film for 1 hour and 40. I hope you've enjoyed it at home. But Charlie and Neel, final thoughts as well. Sorry, I keep taking it all.
It's just perfect. It's a perfect film. Everyone should just go and watch it. Put your phone away, get a drink, and just watch it. It's just amazing.
Surround sound up as well if you've got surround sound. Right up.
What a load of shit this film is. Honestly, why would you? I'm joking. I love it. It's fantastic. It's very, very good. Yeah, it might be the best war film of all time, but I can't say. Yeah, I think you can only compare war to war films. But yeah, it's phenomenal. I forgot how good it was until I watched it just yesterday. And the 3 hours flies by. There are films that are 2 hours and they really outstay their welcome. They need to be like 1 hour 40, 1 hour 30. This could be 3 hours. This could have been longer and it would have been fine. Yeah, 3 hours flies by. It's a phenomenal film.
Definitely. So, everybody at home, please also comment your thoughts on Saving Private Ryan. Have we been too nice about the film? Obviously not. You're wrong. So please let us know if we are wrong. Try and let us know if you think we're wrong. But either side, if you do enjoy this film, let me know some of your favorite scenes. Let me know some of your favorite characters because it's been very long saying we can't go into each one. As incredible as the whole squad already is. So as I said, please do comment your thoughts and let us know. And if you're a fan of Steven Spielberg, this is the place to be. We're past the halfway point of the series now. And the next film will be heading into the 21st century as we arrive at AI, artificial intelligence, a film I have not yet seen.
You don't want me on that video.
I know nothing about it except the tie-ins towards Kubrick, so I'm curious. I'm just going to leave it there. And we've got a panel lined up for that one. We've got another 2 Toms coming on. There's been a lot of Toms on this series. It's been very interesting doing so. But as I said, if you're a fan of Spielberg, hit the subscribe button. If you're a fan of film, hit the subscribe button as well. We've got a lot of things coming out at the time of this video going up on the 2nd of August. We'll have Arsenal's All or Nothing series going up, which I'm dreading whilst looking forward to. I'm pretty sure Bullet Train's out this week and a few other TV shows, The Sandman and other things. So, as I said, hit the subscribe button. A lot of TV and film on the way. And if you want to find us on our social medias, where we are, what we're up to, what we are announcing, the best way to do so is getting us on our Twitter and Instagram at cinema_savvy, Facebook and letterboxd.com/cinemasavvy, and we have a link to Redbubble in the description below where you can pick up some of our merchandise if you want to. It helps support the channel. Obviously, we've got a lot of costs of running these things, and it really does help when people have done that in the past. So please take a look at that. But also, our amazing guests. Charlie, thank you for coming on again. It's got in the 2nd episode now, and we'll have you on for some more of the series. Where can the people find you, and what are you up to?
Yeah, there it is at the bottom on Twitter at FunnyOldWorldX. What am I up to? Watching a lot of films. Still writing my dissertation, so watching a lot of films about AIDS.
Wow. So you could watch a Tom Hanks film with that.
Yeah, I have
Philadelphia.
There you go.
What a film as well.
What synergy we have.
Shouldn't have won Best Actor there. Sorry, that's another conversation. I think it's because of Liam Neeson's Schindler's List. So I'm going to redirect to that film. Go check out Schindler's List review. Neil, though, where can we find you?
Yes, I am at _Neel0TL. Yeah, I have also recently been on the Empire podcast.
Plug.
Um,
Hmm.
I say recently. I don't know when this is going
It's
up. So
ages ago now.
yeah, I was on it ages ago, and I've not been invited back since. Let's just
Hey, but when
assume that.
this airs, it'll nearly be time for She-Hulk.
Mm.
Oh yeah, well,
That's
maybe
quite
go on for that.
exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all really looking forward to She-Hulk.
So yeah,
Great
can't
CGI
wait
from the
for
trailers. But
it.
yeah, what a way to down the episode talking about She-Hulk.
Okay,
There's
then
probably
we'll
some
be nearly
Spielberg
at,
alumni.
we'll be nearly at the era of The Walking Dead coming back.
And another way to downgrade the end of the episode. Absolutely. I'm joking. So as I said, everybody watching at home, thank you as always for checking this video out, for taking time out to be with us today. It's been a pleasure doing this. I've been looking forward to this review for a very long time. In fact, if you want some fun trivia behind the scenes, this was the first thumbnail I made back in January when I pitched the idea to the others on the channel. And then I did the other 33 like the day after because I was already invested and said this is happening now, no questions asked. So that's behind the scenes. Thank you all for watching and be sure to join us next week. Take care.